Good afternoon to you. You with Newsfeed. Glad you're able to join us. The leader of the DA, John Steenhuisen, has confirmed that his party will not be a part of any coalition with the economic freedom fighters after the elections. He tweeted over the weekend the party had learnt its lesson after using the EFF support to elect mayors in 2016. It then lost the support of some of its voters in 2019. John Steenhuisen is the leader of the DA. He joins us now. John, good afternoon to you and thank you for your time. You say you won't be a part of coalitions with the EFF. Why do you say that?
Well, I think we learned the lesson in the last 5 years that you can't be in coalition with people who don't share your core values and principles. And I think we saw what happened particularly in Johannesburg when the EFF started to call the tune, and it put your entire offer in jeopardy. And I think that what we want to do is to be able to make sure that voters know that if they vote for a DA government, they're going to get a DA government and not one where the tail is wagging the dog and principles and policies that are not necessarily supported by the DA are not being implemented in that particular municipality. I think it's very, very clear to put that clear water between the DA and the EFF ahead of the election so that people know exactly what they're voting for when they support us in this coming election.
I'm afraid some of the technical nitty-gritty of this is quite important. So you were not in formal coalitions with the EFF after 2016, but you did use their support to get the mayoralties in places like Joburg. So if the same thing happens again, where you need the votes of the EFF to basically get control over a council, you're saying you would reject those votes, you wouldn't use them?
Well, I'm saying that we would not want to go into coalitions of supply like we saw in Joburg, and we're currently involved in Tshwane. Running minority governments makes it incredibly difficult to get done what you need to get done, as we've seen. It also doesn't bring the stability that we think is important in order for you to have a full 5 years to be able to implement your policies, your principles, and your plans for that particular municipality. So if we cannot put together a stable coalition that's based on a written coalition agreement in which all the coalition partners agree what is required in that municipality, what the red lines are in that municipality, and that we're able to then publish that document, then I think we would rather go onto the opposition benches and be an excellent opposition. There's only one thing worse than losing an election, that's winning and governing badly. And so I would not like to be in a position where the DA's values and principles are compromised by having to make backroom deals with parties like the EFF who don't share those same values and principles.
So, I mean, it may be the EFF, but the next obvious question is that if you look at our councils, there are two parties that in most cases will always be able to get enough support to form a council, and that would be the African National Congress, which is probably still going to win most councils around the country, and yourselves. You and the ANC would, I'm sure, be able to govern in all the metros if you govern together. Are you open to forming more coalitions with the ANC in those councils?
Well, as I said, we're happy to form coalitions with any party that shared the values of non-racialism, respect for the rule of law and the Constitution, a capable state and capable administration based on merit appointments, not on crony appointments and cadre deployment, and a market-based economy that sees business as a partner in growth. If any party agrees on those particular principles, we'd be more than happy to sit and work with them, or certainly sit around the table and explore whether a coalition could be formed or not.
I realize it's a straight answer and it's not a straight answer at the same time, John. So are you saying that you're not going to go into business with the ANC, or are you saying that the door might be open to it?
I'm saying to you that we would support and explore with any parties that commit themselves to those values and principles. I think that, obviously we're going out in Joburg and Tshwane to try and secure our own majorities. The time for coalition talks is after the election. And as I said, we'd be willing to sit around a table to discuss potential coalitions with anybody who commits to those key values and principles, which we think have to be the core foundational principles upon which any coalition government can be formed that we would want to be a part of. If those things are absent, it's going to make it incredibly difficult to form any type of alliance with a party or parties that do not support those core values and principles. If those parties sit around the table and say we are prepared to commit to those, we would be happy to sit and explore whether we could form those relationships.
It's entirely possible that there could actually be quite a lot of chaos in some councils after the election. So what you would have is parties who don't want to form coalitions with each other. And let me give you some examples. There's the example that we've just discussed of you in the EFF. Action SA has said that they don't want to do business with the ANC. The Freedom Front Plus has also said they don't want to do business with the ANC. So what I'm saying is that if all of these parties, including yourselves, and I understand why this happens, but if you all limit your options, we could get to a situation where no one's able to form administrations and councils, and that will lead to chaos.
Well, it would mean that people would have to run minority administrations, as we've had to for some time in Joburg, and then also for the last 5 years in Tshwane. And obviously it does make things difficult, which is why we're out there making the pitch for voters to unite behind the DA so that we can form a strong coalition or a strong government that's going to be able to see the course for the 5 years. But this notion of living from council meeting to council meeting doesn't suit us, because it is impossible to implement your program of action if you're living from council meeting to council meeting. It's not sustainable, it's not stable, and in that case, we'd much rather be an excellent opposition serving the residents of that town or city from the opposition benches, being the watchdog and doing a role like we do in Parliament, rather than being in government with people who don't share your values and principles, and you end up then compromising your offer to the electorate, because you can't say you're for clean and accountable government, and one of the people that you're having to do business with is, trying to get their hands on tenders or trying to put cadres into an administration. It's simply, you then they get lumbered with that. So, chaos or not, the voters have an opportunity to prevent the chaos, and that's by uniting around the one party that can really unseat the ANC, and that is the DA. There's only two parties of government in South Africa outside of KwaZulu-Natal, and that is the DA and the ANC. So people in Tshwane, Joburg, are either going to wake up to a DA-led coalition on the 3rd, or they're going to wake up to an ANC-led coalition on the 3rd. And the pitch we're making to people is to strengthen the DA's hand, unite behind the DA, so that we can go into that in the strongest possible position.
Okay. I mean, the DA on the campaign trail, John, I mean, we're in the last 2 weeks now. There was and I think I will use the word debacle of the Phoenix posters. Your party put them up, your party took them down. Has that hurt you on the campaign trail, this entire issue?
No, not at all. I think that chatting to ordinary South Africans outside of the bubble and the Beltway, many people understood exactly that what we were doing was standing up for all of those South Africans who step in and uphold the rule of law and defend the Constitution, and particularly in areas where the state is retreating. But the ultimate poll is going to be the one on election day, and voters will decide and pass their judgment. I'm very comfortable about where we're at now, and I think we're heading for a good result.
Well, I mean, that may be the case, but, well, we'll come to that in a moment. But, I mean, I must say something where, it wasn't the national leadership of your party that agreed to these posters. They didn't seem to see them beforehand. It showed disunity in your party. We've seen already Mike Waters, one of your organizers in the east of Gauteng, resigning from that position, still a member of the DA, because of the decision to take the posters down. I realize that in some ways in all political parties, the tensions in our society are reflected within our political parties. The DA and the ANC are no different to that. But surely the poster debacle must have damaged you in some way.
I don't think so. And I think that certainly if I look at where we're at in the polls, it has not had an impact. I think there's been a lot of noise in the bubble and on Twitter, etc. But that's not the voters' role. Ordinary South Africans care about service delivery. They care about the sewage running in the streets. They care about whether they've got water in their taps or electricity in their homes. Those are the things that matter to ordinary voters, and certainly the people I've been speaking to on the campaign trail over the course of the last week. I also think that we get a bit of a microscopic focus on the DA. And yes, there are differences, like there are in any party. But I think if one looks at what happened in KwaZulu-Natal yesterday evening, with candidates being shot, people being killed, I think the internal differences in the DA pale into, frankly, insignificance compared to the major chasms that are present in many other parties, where people are literally killing each other.
You also have new posters. They say the DA or ANC, your choice. I mean, that's giving free advertising to the ANC, isn't it? It's quite a curious choice of a campaign tool.
No, it's not. It's very clearly putting the choice between voters. I said to you, if you live in a town or city, you're going to wake up on the 3rd of November with a DA-led government or an ANC-led government. I think we've spent the campaign showing the choice, that showing very clearly where we govern, we get things done, and giving people the alternative. Now it's part of the final phase of the campaign, is putting that final choice and making it abundantly clear to voters that you're either going to have 5 years under an ANC government or you're going to have 5 years under a DA government. And we've shown, I believe, that where we govern, we get things done. And I think it's a compelling offer. There are only two parties of government in South Africa, the DA or the ANC. That is the choice, plain and simple. You're either going to end up with one or other leading your municipality.
You lost support in 2019 in those national elections. You as a political party weren't the leader then. Is there any evidence that the DA is going to do better in these elections? I must admit I can't see any evidence that you're gaining momentum.
Well, let me not comment on that, other than to say that absolutely we're gaining momentum, and let me say that I'm seeing it around the country. I'm very comfortable where we're at in the internal polls, and I think that the voters on election day are going to surprise the commentariat, who are always very quick to write the DA off in every single election, always say the DA is going to be displaced by this party or that party. But that is never the case, and we're able to get people out because we do the hard work. I mean, we ran a really tight registration campaign. We won the registration weekend. We're going to do well on election day, and the momentum is with us. I'm absolutely convinced about that. I wouldn't be out here on the campaign trail speaking to you from it if that wasn't the case. I'm very, very confident that outside of the noise and outside of the Beltway, the majority of South Africans can see that the DA is the alternative, and that if they want service delivery, they want electricity, they want jobs, they want an opportunity to build a safer community for themselves and their families, well, there is an alternative, and that's the DA. And we're not just talking about it, we're doing it where we govern, and that's what our manifesto sets out very, very clearly.
In 2019, when the DA lost support, Mmusi Maimane ended up leaving the party. Are you worried for your position if you don't do better in this election?
Not at all, Stephen. I'm very happy about where I am at, where we're at the polls, and I think we're going to do well in this election. And I'm looking forward to that result when the people of South Africa, not the commentariat and commentators, the people of South Africa get to have their say about who they want to represent them in their councils and in their city.
John Steenhuisen, thank you, leader of the Democratic Alliance. I do appreciate the time on the campaign trail.